The moment I opened the door with Daniel standing beside me, my world cracked. My husband, Michael, looked up from the couch with the same warm smile he had given me every night for 12 years, until his eyes landed on the man I had been hiding. The air thickened, the smile faded, and I realized too late that one decision could shatter everything we built. I should have told him weeks ago. I should have confessed before it reached this point, but I didn't. Instead, I stood frozen in the doorway with Daniel's presence looming beside me. Michael muted the television and turned his head slowly. His expression morphed from affection to confusion, then finally to something sharper, harder, a blade hidden behind calm eyes. "Who's this?" he asked, voice steady but dangerous in its restraint. I swallowed hard, my palms slick. "Michael, this is Daniel." Silence fell between us. The hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen seemed deafening. Daniel shifted slightly, his hands in his pockets, his face unreadable. I forced the words out, each one cutting my throat on its way out. He's the man I've been seeing, and he wants us to share. He doesn't want me to choose." Michael blinked. For a moment I thought he hadn't understood me. Then his jaw tightened, the muscle in his cheek twitching. "You brought him here," he said finally. "Into our home." His calmness was worse than anger. It terrified me. I tried to steady my voice. "Michael, please just listen. I love you, I do, but I love him too. I thought maybe we could make this work." Daniel placed a hand lightly on my arm, trying to lend me courage. "We didn't mean to hurt you," he said carefully. "We just thought there could be another way." Michael rose from the couch with deliberate slowness, his eyes never leaving mine. Without a word, he walked out of the room. My chest constricted, breath shallow. The distant sound of the bathroom door shutting echoed through the house. Then, the flush. My hands shook. Daniel's composure faltered. His eyes flicked toward me, silently asking what to do. When Michael returned, he held something small and metallic in his hand. A keychain. Its silver surface glinted in the light. My voice was barely a whisper. "What is that?" He held it up. "The key," he said, his voice unnervingly calm. "To a new beginning." The words dripped with a meaning I couldn't yet grasp. He stepped closer, his eyes searing into mine. "You shattered everything when you brought him here. And now you expect me to just accept it?" Tears burned at the corners of my eyes. "Michael, You thought wrong." His words sliced through the air. He dropped the keychain on the coffee table with a sharp clink. "You made your choice. Now you both deal with the consequences." Then he disappeared again, only to return with the small wooden box where we kept our wedding rings. He opened it slowly, revealing emptiness. "I flushed them," he said, matter of fact. "I guess we won't be needing them anymore." A sob caught in my throat. Daniel shifted uncomfortably beside me, his usual composure cracking. Michael placed the box on the coffee table with deliberate care, then sat back on the couch, posture relaxed but eyes blazing. The silence was unbearable. Finally, I whispered, "Why are you doing this?" "Why?" He let out a bitter laugh. "Because you destroyed everything. You thought you could love two people and still keep what we had, but marriage doesn't work like that." "I love you, Michael," I said desperately, "but I love him too. Please, we can figure this out." He shook his head slowly. "You thought wrong." Daniel stepped forward, trying to break the tension. "Maybe we can talk this through. There has to be a way." Michael cut him off, his voice icy. "The only way is for both of you to leave." The finality in his tone was a death knell. Daniel's confidence faltered. He cleared his throat awkwardly. "I should go," he muttered. Then he turned, retreating toward the door, leaving me paralyzed. When the door clicked shut behind him, Michael finally spoke, his voice quiet and distant. "This is how it ends." Hours passed in suffocating silence. He locked himself in the bedroom. I sat alone on the couch, staring at the empty ring box, realizing there was no way back. The night after Michael flushed our wedding rings, the house felt like a tomb. I sat on the edge of the couch, staring at the empty wooden box, the ticking clock slicing the silence into unbearable fragments. He hadn't emerged from the bedroom, and I hadn't dared to knock. Daniel had left hours earlier, his retreat quick and clumsy, but the ghost of his presence still lingered. The air carried the scent of his cologne, foreign and invasive, mingling with Michael's familiar musk that clung to the curtains, the carpet, the walls, our walls. I couldn't sleep. My body trembled with fear, guilt, and the desperate hope that there was still something salvageable in the ruins I had made. But deep down, a truth gnawed at me. Michael's silence was not surrender. It was calculation. 2 days later, my phone buzzed. "Michael, come home. We need to talk. The message was simple, almost benign, but my stomach knotted instantly. My hands shook as I showed Daniel. You can't seriously be thinking about going back, he said, his voice low but sharp. Evelyn, he's not just going to forgive you over a glass of wine. This feels wrong. I bit my lip, unable to tear my eyes from the words on the screen. Come home, we need to talk. I need to know what he's planning, I whispered, more to myself than to him. Daniel paced the room. Planning? Exactly, he is planning something. And you're walking straight into it. I met his eyes, searching for strength, but all I saw was fear dressed as caution. He didn't understand. Michael's silence was more terrifying than his anger ever could be. I couldn't move forward, couldn't breathe, until I knew what lay behind it. The drive back felt like moving through a nightmare in slow motion. Each familiar street twisted into something uncanny, every mile heavy with dread. When I pulled into the driveway, the house was bathed in the soft gold of sunset, deceptively peaceful. Inside, Michael was waiting. He sat on the couch, a bottle of wine on the coffee table, 2 glasses already poured. His posture was casual, but his eyes fixed on me with an intensity that pinned me in place. You came, he said simply. I nodded, my throat dry. Sit. I obeyed, lowering myself into the chair across from him. My legs trembled as though the earth beneath me might crack. We sipped in silence. The wine tasted bitter, metallic, like blood in my mouth. I couldn't swallow it down without wincing. Michael didn't touch his glass again after the first sip. He was watching me too closely. Finally, he leaned forward, his voice low but steady. I've had time to think. I braced myself. About us, about what you've done. About him, he paused, letting the weight of each word settle like stones in my chest. I opened my mouth, but he raised a hand. Don't, just listen. I bit back the words burning my tongue. I don't want to fight, what's done is done. But we need to move forward. For a fleeting, foolish moment, hope sparked in me. Was he saying there was a chance, that we could rebuild? Then his gaze hardened. I've made a decision, I want a fresh start. My heart leapt, then faltered. A fresh start? I echoed, the words trembling. Yes, but there are conditions. His eyes locked onto mine, unblinking. You and Daniel leave town tonight, and you never come back. The air left my lungs. What? You heard me? His voice was calm, almost soothing, but the steel underneath made me shiver. You brought him into our lives, into this house, so now you both leave it for good. I shook my head violently, tears springing to my eyes. Michael, please, don't do this. What about us? What about? There is no more us. His voice cracked, just for a moment, a flash of anguish breaking through the calm. Not after this. The finality in his tone was like a blade through my chest. Michael, I love you, I whispered, my vision blurring. I made a mistake, but I love you, don't throw this away. His eyes glistened with unshed tears, but his resolve was unshakable. It's already gone, you made sure of that. Now you live with it. The silence that followed was unbearable. The glass of wine in my hand felt heavy, poisonous. My heart pounded against my ribs, begging for reprieve. Finally, I nodded, my voice breaking. I'll go. His shoulders relaxed slightly, but his eyes never softened. He leaned back, hands folded neatly in his lap. Goodbye, Evelyn. The word goodbye sliced deeper than any scream could. I rose slowly, my knees weak, my chest hollow. The house seemed darker now, suffocating, as though it too had rejected me. At the door, I turned back, one last futile attempt to bridge the chasm. Michael. But he didn't move. He didn't even look at me. I left. The cool night air slapped my face as I stumbled to the car. Daniel was waiting inside, his eyes wide with worry. What happened? He demanded. I could barely get the words out. He wants us gone. Forever. Daniel's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. We drove away in silence, the house shrinking in the rearview mirror until it was nothing more than a shadow. I told myself that was the end, that the worst was over. But as the road stretched endlessly ahead of us, a pit in my stomach whispered the truth. Michael's silence wasn't an ending. It was the beginning of something far worse. The weeks after we left Michael's house were a blur of muted arguments and half-hearted attempts at normalcy. Daniel tried to hold us together, but the strain was relentless. Every glance, every whispered tension, reminded me that the foundation of what we had built was never solid, only an illusion. Michael, meanwhile, had disappeared from our immediate lives, but I could sense his presence like a shadow trailing every decision. And then the first legal notice arrived. Divorce papers. I remember the day clearly. A crisp white envelope, its official seal mocking me with precision. My hands trembled as I opened it, revealing the meticulously drafted documents. Michael was asking for full custody of our children. The words hit me like a freight train. Full custody. The letters blurred together as panic clawed at my chest. I tried to call Daniel immediately, but he didn't answer. When he finally did, his voice was hollow. Evelyn, this isn't just about leaving town. He's preparing to take everything. I sank to the floor, the paper crumpling in my hands. Everything? Daniel, we didn't mean. I know, he said, his voice breaking, but it doesn't matter. The law doesn't care about intentions. Michael's legal team moved with ruthless efficiency. Every text, every photo, every fleeting conversation I had with Daniel was turned against me. Witness statements arrived like knives in my chest, each one highlighting my failures as a wife, as a mother. I felt hunted, stripped of credibility, and utterly powerless. Court dates blurred into one another. Each morning I woke with dread curling in my stomach. Daniel tried to comfort me, but I could feel him pulling away, silently blaming himself for being dragged into this mess. The first hearing was brutal. Michael's lawyer presented evidence methodically. Photographs of Daniel and me together, texts proving our affair, even moments of private conversations taken out of context to paint a picture of instability. I sat there, frozen, as the judge's gavel sliced through my hope. Michael, calm, composed, unshakable, stood as the paragon of reason and responsibility. Every glance he sent my way was controlled, measured, a silent accusation I couldn't escape. By the end of the day, the verdict was clear: full custody granted to Michael. Sitting outside the courthouse, I felt the weight of everything collapse onto me at once. Daniel remained silent, his face pale and drawn. I can't do this anymore, he said finally, voice trembling. I thought we could make it work, but everything is falling apart. Tears streamed down my face as I watched him walk away, leaving me alone in a world that no longer belonged to me. The man I loved, the man I had risked everything for, had disappeared into the shadows of my choices. The house I had once called home became a museum of memories I could no longer touch. Each room echoed with laughter that would never return, warmth that had vanished, love that had evaporated. Michael moved into a new home, one he could mold for himself and our children, carefully crafting a life without me. Social media became a gallery of my failures, smiling pictures of him and the kids, every snapshot a reminder of what I had lost. Even friends turned away, unable to reconcile the woman they knew with the woman who had betrayed everything. Loneliness pressed against me from every angle. I was a ghost trapped in the ruins of my own making. Daniel called less and less frequently. When we spoke, it was brief, hollow, and filled with unspoken blame. The love I had thought would carry us through was now drowned in guilt and regret. I moved into a small apartment, bare and cold, a stark contrast to the life I had once known. Nights were the worst. I would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, haunted by the echo of children's laughter, by Michael's calm, unrelenting gaze, by the sight of that empty ring box. I tried to hold on to what little I had left, memories, regrets, the faint hope that one day, some bridge could be rebuilt. But every reminder of Michael's meticulous resolve tore it away. One night, I found myself scrolling through social media. Michael's new life appeared perfect, curated to precision. A photo of him reading bedtime stories to our children, another of a family dinner, another of a birthday celebration with laughter and love radiating from every pixel. And me, I was a ghost, alone, forgotten. I realized then the full measure of what I had lost. Not just the home, not just the marriage, not just the family. I had lost myself. Even Daniel, my co-conspirator, the other man, had abandoned me. He left behind only the memory of what we had tried, the hollow shell of a love that could never survive the weight of betrayal. Michael's calm had been more dangerous than rage. His silence, more terrifying than confrontation. In the courtroom, in the halls of law, in the quiet nights where I lay awake alone, he had orchestrated everything. The punishment was complete, and I was left with nothing. The apartment was quiet, too quiet. A hollow, suffocating quiet that pressed against my ears and heart alike. The walls were bare, the furniture sparse, and yet the space felt heavier than any house I had ever lived in. Each corner whispered reminders of everything I had lost. My children, my husband, my dignity, the life I had taken for granted. I spent my days in a fog. Even mundane tasks felt monumental. Making a cup of tea, folding laundry, staring out the window at the world that continued to turn as though I had never existed. Social media was a relentless parade of reminders. Photos of Michael and the children, laughing, loving, thriving, images that stabbed me with every click. I tried to look away, but curiosity, guilt, and longing pulled me in again and again. Daniel's absence was the final cut. The man I had thought would stand with me through anything had retreated into the shadows, worn down by the constant tension and the harsh reality of our choices. When he spoke during our last conversation, his voice cracked. "I'm sorry, Evelyn, I need to move on." I had nodded numbly, swallowing the lump of despair that lodged itself in my throat. Alone now, truly alone, I was forced to confront the consequences of my betrayal. Time lost its meaning. Days blurred into nights. My phone rarely rang. When it did, it was from strangers. Lawyers, social workers, people handling paperwork for visitation or court dates. My children's faces, once the center of my world, became images I could only glimpse under supervision, fleeting moments that left me hollow and aching. Every visit was a cruel reminder of the life I had thrown away. My children's innocent questions pierced me like arrows. "Why can't we come home with you?" Or, "Why don't you live here anymore?" Their voices, soft and searching, shattered the fragile shell I had left to protect myself. I thought of Michael often, not in longing, not in hope, but in awe and fear. His calm, his control, his patience, it had been a weapon. He hadn't screamed, hadn't cursed, hadn't broken anything in anger. He had simply dismantled my life piece by piece, and the result was catastrophic. Every decision I had made, every secret I had harbored, had been met with his quiet, methodical response. And he had won. Weeks turned into months. I moved from one apartment to another, trying to escape the memories, trying to outrun the ghosts of my own making. But every familiar street, every corner of the city, reminded me of what I had lost. Michael's presence lingered everywhere, not in body, but in the echoes of his control, the imprint of his strategy, the aftermath of his calm vengeance. Daniel disappeared completely, leaving only the memory of what we had thought was love. I would see his shadow in the corner of my mind during quiet moments, and my chest would tighten, a visceral reminder that nothing survives betrayal unscathed. Michael rebuilt his life methodically. A new home, carefully chosen. A garden planted with intention. A family life curated to perfection. Photos of birthdays, holidays, small victories, all shared online, all exuding warmth, stability, and happiness. Each image was a dagger, each post a reminder that I was no longer part of that world. I had nothing to show for myself but the wreckage. Friends had drifted away, unable to reconcile the woman they knew with the one I had become. Every familiar smile now felt like a lie, every call a reminder of my isolation. Even my own reflection in the mirror was alien. The eyes staring back were hollow, haunted by guilt and regret. My body moved through space, but my soul had long since left the room. At night, I would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, haunted by fragments of memory. Laughter echoing in the hallways, the warmth of a hand on mine, bedtime stories that once soothed and connected us. Now, those fragments were knives, carving the emptiness in my chest with precision. Michael's calmness haunted me more than his anger ever could have. Rage is transient, fear fades. But his silence, his measured responses, his unflinching resolve, they had left permanent scars. He didn't need to shout, didn't need to punish overtly. He had orchestrated a life for himself while methodically stripping away mine. I thought I had understood consequences, but the full measure of loss is something you can never predict until you are swallowed by it. My children's laughter was no longer mine to hear. The home I had loved and betrayed was no longer mine to enter. My marriage, once a sanctuary, was reduced to ashes by my own choices and his calculated calm. Some nights I whispered into the dark, hoping for an answer, some absolution. "Michael, do you hate me?" The silence answered me every time. No words, no reprieve, just the weight of what I had done and what I had lost. Even now, months later, the memory of his eyes, his deliberate calm, the quiet destruction he had wielded with precision, lingers in every corner of my mind. It is a constant, chilling reminder. Betrayal has consequences, and sometimes the most devastating punishment comes not in anger, but in meticulous, unwavering control. I live now with the shadows of my decisions. Each day is a reminder, each night a test. I am a ghost in my own life, haunted by what once was, and by the man who taught me that calm can be more terrifying than any scream. And I know, with a clarity that chills me to the bone, that some ghosts never leave. Some ghosts never leave.